Number 10. Children of the Vault. The Children of the Vault are their own race who seek to rule the world. They are neither mutants nor humans, though they did evolve from the human race. The children are part of a race that descended from humans, having been technologically evolved over the course of 6,000 years. They believe only one race should rule Earth and plan on becoming said race. One of their members, Seraphina, recently resurfaced in the Dawn of X-Men series, having escaped from Orcas, who had somehow captured her. Before Wolverine could catch her though, she returned to the Vault, where she was also seen rejoining the other children. Number 9. Phalanx. So the Phalanx are kind of complex. If you are familiar with the Phalanx, it's probably because you are familiar with the Annihilation Conquest story arc from 2007 to 2008. The Phalanx work basically to destroy matter and upload it to a hive mind of data using the techno-organic virus, assimilating all organic and inorganic matter that they come across in the universe. So they're basically like the Technarchy, but the Phalanx share a collective mind, where the Technarchy are individuals. Phalanx aim to absorb all matter in the universe and eventually manage to threaten all of Earth and mutant kind respectively. It is only through Moira's regeneration abilities that we know the great risk this hive mind tech race could pose, and has posed to the X-Men and all of life before, in a previous one of Moira's lives. Number 8. The Supremacy. The Supremacy sought to take down and defeat the X-Men in an alternate future. We learn a bit more about them in Powers of X. They were the ones behind Nimrod the Lesser and eventually Nimrod the Greater, and their library of Homo sapiens and mutants alike. After years of breeding mutants in camps to use as their slaves and hounds to fight against their own kind who had revolted, they went a step further, literally dissolving mutants in tanks of femto fluid until they were reduced to nothing but the data that comprised them. Ugh. They would then be stored in a great library where the data that their corpses provided could be used to win the war against mutant kind. Eventually, the war became obsolete, however, making this whole process and the library that stored this data almost eerily useless, which is creepier. Don't put me in femto fluid, please.
Number 7. Horticulture. Ever since I learned about this group, I will take any opportunity to talk about them. Horticulture is a group of 4 older women between the ages of 64 to 81 who are all expert botanists. They are Augusta Bromes, Lily Lamus, Edith Scutch, and Opal Vedivere. And their goal is simple. Sort of. Essentially, they want to bring Earth back to a more pristine time. A time when it had about 7 billion less people on it. Yes, these ladies want to basically exterminate most of the Earth's human population and bring plants back to the forefront, and specifically flowers, which is kind of a lovely idea, sort of. This goal brings them into conflict with the X-Men in 2019's X-Men number 3, because the nation of Krakoa, that the mutants call home, have been mass producing these flowers with different bio and tech purposes, and these ladies would like to use them for their villainous goals. Beyond biological modifications believed to have been made to themselves, the women of horticulture are experts at manipulating the environment to suit their extinction agenda. And they're also computer programmers, selling software to the anti-mutant group Orcas to monitor Krakoan gateways. So now you know.
Number 6. Cordyceps Jones. Although he might not be as new as some of the other villains mentioned here, Cordyceps Jones is still a relatively new villain, if you've been out of comics for the last few years at least. He first appeared back in 2017 in Rocket issue number 4 and was created by Al Ewing and Adam Gorham. Cordyceps Jones is known for having a salacious reputation across the cosmos. He's a 30,000-year-old fungal parasite who, due to his longevity, has made an intergalactic fortune and is known for owning many successful casinos across the cosmos. Recently, he appeared in the X-Men series, where he seems to be threatening the existence of Earth, setting up a bet for fun to see who can be the first to wipe it out. Because, you know, that's what you do when you're a rich fungal parasite and you've been around for too long. That's what happens. You gotta make some bets.
Number 5. The Sinister Adaptoid. Okay, so the Super Adaptoid ain't no kind of new villain either, but an Adaptoid that takes on the abilities and likeness of all the members of the Sinister Six, that's certainly something new. In Amazing Spider-Man number 6 from 2022, which also happens to mark Amazing Spider-Man number 900 in legacy numbering, a second and improved version of the Living Brain emerges as the story's primary antagonist on Peter Parker's birthday. His main goal? Trying to find out who Spider-Man is. To that end, he kidnapped all of Spider-Man's most frequently deadly foes, the Sinister Six, and created a Super Adaptoid with them. It's like 25 feet tall, strong, fast, zappy, honor-obsessed, eight-legged, mysterious, and it likes to quote some of the Six's lines. Spider-Man ends up having to team up with the captured Six villains to fight the Adaptoid, but it's actually the villains' inability to properly work together that makes the Adaptoid malfunction and destroy itself. It's kinda funny how that works. As for the living brain, he ends up switching sides when Spider-Man refuses to let the Six destroy it, and saves the day before revealing it actually already knows Peter's real name. Kinda weird.
Number 4. Orcas. Orcas is the entire villainous organization that first appeared in House of X issue number 1, back when Dawn of X was just starting up and it was all fresh and new and we were like, a new mutant thing and it's so good, and now we're like, please don't ever end, but it's probably gonna end soon, so I'll just go into the closet and cry forever. Don't worry about it. Orcas is an anti-mutant organization that is pro-human, and as such is all about the advancement of AI, such as Nimrod and Sentinels, to help protect humanity against the growing mutant threat. Like there's gonna be some people in the comments who are gonna say, actually, Nimrod is technically a Sentinel, and you're right, but also, don't worry about it. Orcas sees mutant evolution as a threat to humanity's existence, but little do they know, the AI they're creating is likely to serve as an even greater threat to humanity's existence in the future, based on everything that we've seen, and every alternate universe we've ever explored where that has continued. Many have joined Orcas since we were first introduced to them, with even a few mutants betraying their own kind to join their ranks. Number 2. Merc. Merc is a team and organization that was built out of the demilitarization that seems to have happened globally as a result of Krakoa being recognized as a nation. Call it a time of peace or call it an anxious time of reserved resources in preparation for the war to come, but regardless of the cause, Merc is comprised of former top paramilitary soldiers who seek out battle because, you know, they were kinda laid off, and as such have become guns for hire. They are loyal to no nation. They were originally employed by Zeno to fight against the X-Force and X-Men, but may have also more recently been approached by the mutants themselves in regards to their services. So we'll have to wait and see. They were fighting against them, but maybe they can be used. Number 1. Homanizerendi. While the Marauders might operate separately from the X-Men, they are still comprised of a lot of former and current X-Men members, including one of the original team members, Bobby Drake, and it also includes Storm! Yay! This team is led by Captain Kate and ends up going up against the anti-mutant organization Homanizerendi, which is comprised of former Inner Circle members of the Hellfire Club. Sort of. Also, can we just acknowledge how great the Hellfire Trading Company is though? Separate of course from Homanizerendi, but still, they're really cool and I just had to shout them out because yeah, they're really fun. Homanizerendi were previously known as the unofficial Hellfire Brats and were originally part of the Hellfire Academy. The team also has their own White Queen, Black King, and the like, similar to Krakoa's Quiet Council and the former Hellfire Club. But of course, they're all kids, they're all little non-mutant kids who just want to hate on mutants. Evil children, evil children. Number 10. Mr. Negative. Starting off strong, we have a supervillain who was introduced in 2007 and yet despite being newer to the Spider-Man supervillain roster, has quickly risen in terms of his evil acclaim. Mr. Negative's true identity still remains somewhat of a mystery to us. He was originally a member of a gang in China known for human trafficking. Looking to escape the criminal life, he stole the identity of one of the human cargo who had perished on the journey to the States, Martin Lee, who was setting out to America to join his wife. Martin Lee, and now that's what we think when we think Mr. Negative. He ended up kidnapped by Simon Marshall, who was developing a drug called D-Light, the experimentation of which often led to the death of those who tested it. He forcefully tested it on fake Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, and 2 other hostages of his who somehow survived the process. The 3 escaped and as a result of the experimental drug, developed superpowers attached to the Dark Force and Light Force. Martin Lee would become Mr. Negative, and the other 2 prisoners, Tyrone Johnson and Tandy Bowen, would become Cloak and Dagger. The effects also caused a split within Mr. Negative's personality, dividing the evil criminal persona of Mr. Negative from the kind and sweet persona of Martin Lee. Mr. Negative has the power to corrupt a person, bringing out the dark side of them with just a touch. He can also imbue weapons with the Dark Force, making them stronger, or increasing their strength, you know, whatever. Anyways, that's it. That's all you gotta know about Mr. Negative apparently. I told you enough, I told you his origins. Number 9. Hippo. I felt we had to include Hippo because a lot of these villains have just a lot of intense and serious elements to them, and they're all terrifying in their own way, but Hippo does a good job of providing some of the lightness to the new Spider-Man villain scene. After all, Spider-Man comics are often known for having some of the most, Ridiculous villains? Comical villains? How can we put that? I don't want to insult them. Not to say that hippos aren't terrifying, by the way, because they are. You don't want to mess with a hippo. I know that. I certainly would not mess with a hippo. Still, Mrs. Fluffy Lumpkins, as Hippo was once known when he was a zoo animal, has a pretty comical backstory, being transformed randomly by the High Evolutionary and then setting out to rob banks because he knows no one would hire a semi-human hippo. The life of a supervillain. It's tough when you're part hippo, part human. Number 8. Massacre. Massacre is a pretty meaningful villain when it comes to those of them that reflect the issues of the times as well, though he is a little on the nose when it comes to this. He was caught up in an attack on Wall Street, and while his wife died during the attack, he survived, though shrapnel became lodged in his brain, and this shrapnel affected his feelings, causing him to basically become detached from his own emotions and his own humanity, enabling him to become a sociopathic villain. He set up shooting people at random, but was apprehended and spared by Spider-Man. He then did some time in Ravencroft, basically the Arkham Asylum of Marvel. After getting out of Ravencroft though, he went right back going on a shooting spree. But this time he was able to leverage millions of dollars out of the mass shooting. During this attack though, he was confronted by Superior Spider-Man, aka Otto Octavius, who was in Spider-Man's body. Otto shot him, and this allowed Massacre to feel fear again for the first time, which he reveled in before he basically died. But he might not be dead, so it's fine. Number 6. Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was a very wealthy politician. He was publicly humiliated by Kate Pride. Yeah, she's dropped Kitty, and she's just going by Kate Pride now. And Bishop. She was humiliated when she attempted to blame mutants for her missing husband, who turned out had actually just joined a kind of cult of worshipping and celebrating mutants. So that's kinda awkward for her. Frustrated, she decided to make a very generous donation to anti-mutant organizations and aims to continue her own fight in the war against mutants. She donated to one very specific anti-mutant organization actually, which we'll talk about soon. Number 5. Zeno. Although the creation and unity we have seen from the mutants in the Dawn of X relaunch has allowed them to shut down those programs who would use mutants as test subjects and as a means to advance human evolution, that doesn't mean that the people behind those organizations just disappear. In fact, it seems that instead the few people left who still believe in them have found one another and created a more secretive organization in the shadows known as Zeno. Zeno was the group behind the assassination of Charles Xavier in the X-Force series, and while X was successfully resurrected, Zeno still created quite a shiver of panic among the mutants of Krakoa. This organization will likely continue to pop up as an enemy to mutants and the X-Men throughout the relaunch, and they are ruthless, resourceful, and terrifying in their methods, successfully using the captured Domino's skin to ensure their assassination's team success. Ick. Graphic. Get it? Because they graphed her skin? Ew. Gotta get that luck though, gotta just slap that luck skin onto ya. Number 4. Apoth. Apoth is the main antagonist of the new Fallen Angel series. While Apoth doesn't directly threaten all of mutant kind or all of X-Men, although at the end they kind of mentioned it like they would be threatening that, they definitely found a strong enemy with one member of the X-Men, Psylocke. Or well, a version of Psylocke anyways. With Braddock and Quanon both being discarded as names for her, Psylocke sets out to seek out her daughter, who had been taken from her years ago when she worked for the Hand. Yeah, apparently she has a secret daughter, that's a thing. And to find a villain called Apoth. Also, I think we can assume because of the whole hand thing that this Psylocke is Quanon, but she doesn't want us to call her Quanon, so we won't do that. It turns out that Apoth is a god who also kind of has an army of children at their disposal, and that they inhabit two sides of themselves, one light, one dark. Psylocke creates a team and works with Sinister to find and defeat Apoth for her own reasons, not knowing that in fact strings have also kind of been pulled in regards to this upcoming battle and why she's going to do it. Apoth is a powerful and psychic telepathic villain, but still proves to be no match for Psylocke. Number 3. Kindred. Kindred was hinted at in the comics more than a decade before he made his comic book debut in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5, Issue 5. He is maybe one of the best villains because he is still so shrouded in mystery. We don't know a lot about him. In fact, I'm not even sure if he is a he. Could end up being a she. We don't really know. This villain can control and create centipedes and is a demon spawn. In life, he was someone who is close to Peter Parker, hence his codename Kindred. Kindred spirit, get it? He affectionately has referred to Peter as Pete. All we know so far is that he's out for blood when it comes to Norman Osborn, and also has a grudge against Pete for some reason as well. He was also powerful and terrifying enough to have had Mysterio pledge loyalty to him. So you know. like kind of a bigger bad than Mysterio. Mysterio's pretty big bad, pretty big. Number 2, Dr. Octopus. Well, Dr. Octopus is one of the oldest and most iconic Spider-Man villains around. I know y'all were about to be like, but wait, Dr. Octopus he came out in issue 3. Though Chameleon actually was first, came out in issue 1, there was an amazing alternate version of him that needs to be acknowledged. In Into the Spider-Verse, we got to meet a female version of Doc Ock known as Olivia Octavius. So why do we love her? Well, because she is terrifying, brilliant, has a great character design, and is voiced by Kathryn Hahn. And because she was also unexpected. When you're making superhero movies or even writing comics today, it's hard to keep things feeling fresh and unpredictable. And this was honestly something I myself was not expecting when I was watching the movie. I also just love that she has kind of like a Tom Baker's Doctor Who vibe going on with her headband and her scarf. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I just felt like it was cool. Maybe I'm just imagining things because I love Doctor Who too much. You asked for the newest villains and you got it. Cadaverous first appeared in the 2019 Spider-Man series co-written by J.J. Abrams and his son Henry Abrams. It's an experience. Cadaverous is a combination of technology and organic parts, a human face, and almost human mind, albeit one that seems to struggle to speak properly. Takes him forever to get a sentence out. Make up this huge cybernetic monster. In the first issue, we handily see him defeat Peter as Spider-Man and kill MJ, leaving their son Ben to grow up moody and without his mom, and sort of without his dad, who abandoned him. He's got a hook hand, life is hard. It now seems that Cadaverous has a villainous plot, and that young Ben and possibly his absentee hook-handed father Peter will have to work together to unravel and eventually stop said plot. Oh yeah, and he's also got an army of robots. Number 10, The Builders. The Builders are a recent addition of the Marvel Rogues Gallery, only recently approaching their 10th year of existence in the comics, which makes them sound old, but really relative to comic book history, they're still pretty new, because Marvel Comics I think has been going on for like 80 years. Whoa! The Builders are a race of beings who claim to have created most of the known worlds in the universe, seeding worlds and influencing the development of civilizations for eons. They are also said to be a perfect race of beings, and when the multiverse appears to be dying as a result of incursions, they take it upon themselves to clean up the mess by wiping out complete worlds and empires, which puts them at odds with the heroes of Earth during the Infinity crossover event.
Number 9, The Black Winter. Ready to be slightly confused? Good. So the Marvel multiverse rebirths itself whenever it gets destroyed. Right now the multiverse is currently in its 8th version. Everything prior to the most recent Secret Wars and the incursions and the battle world and all that took place in the 7th version. Before that came to be, there was, get this, the 6th version. And when that version was destroyed, only one being survived. That would be the character who became Galactus. Well, now we know how the 6th cosmos was destroyed, and ooh, it's scary. The 6th cosmos was actually consumed by an entity called the Black Winter, essentially a living storm of destruction and entropy on a multiversal scale, like Galactus but for universes. Kind of. When the Black Winter ate the 6th cosmos, it allowed Galen, Galactus' real name, to live on into the 7th cosmos, and serve as its herald. Now, funnily enough, Galactus mostly ignored his heralding duties until the day the Black Winter showed up in the 7th cosmos in 2019. Galactus turned to Thor for help, but the two were unable to cooperate, and Thor wound up slaying Galactus, something the Black Winter prophesied would actually happen. Then Thor turned the corpse of Galactus into a power cosmic explosion and blew up the Black Winter. But before it went away, it showed Thor how he will perish at the hands of Thanos wielding an Infinity Stone encrusted Mjolnir. So now we have that to look forward to.
Number 8, Mr. Misery. Mr. Misery is a Doctor Strange villain that was actually created by Doctor Strange himself. Some people create their own villains. Oof. Some people are their own villains. Ah. Mr. Misery was a creature that embodied all the pain and misery that Strange had suffered from using magic during his time as Sorcerer Supreme. The beast was also commonly referred to as the Thing in the Cellar. At least, well, that's what it was originally referred to as. We'll get to that in a second. The Thing in the Cellar was released when all magic was threatened during the attack of the technological army known as Empirical. Mr. Misery is actually the name the creature took for itself after Doctor Strange was forced to reckon with it following its accidental release. Strange freed the creature by depositing his suffering and pain instead into the people that he had saved, dividing it up so that each only carried a small piece of it within them. These people were also willing to do so as they had been saved by Strange in the past. So they were like, yo, Strange is my guy, I'll take a little bit of pain for you, no problem. Even after being freed, Mr. Misery continued to crave the pain and suffering of others, which is, why he took the name Mr. Misery and became a villain. Or they, it. It's kind of like a blob. Number 7. The Inheritors. Not everyone is a huge fan of these energy vampires, but they play an integral role in the Spider-Verse story arc. In both of the Spider-Verse story arcs, to be honest, Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon. The family of vampires who feed off of spider totems and any other animal-based totems were an extension of the original villain, Morlun. Morlun first appeared in the Spider-Man comics in 2001, and it wasn't until 2014 that we would meet the rest of his family, the Inheritors. These energy vampires threaten the existence of the entire Spider-Verse on more than one occasion. Lucard himself, who was part of the Inheritor family, would end up defecting, becoming the Master Weaver. In the end, when the Inheritors ended up cloned and returned due to the era of Superior Spider-Man, the head of the family, Solus, and the rest of the Inheritors ended up defeated at the hands of an Enigma Force-powered Miles Morales armed with the Sword Vigor. And it was discovered that Solus was actually behind all the endless hunger that all of his family felt. Because of this, the Spider Army decided to bring back the Inheritors once more, with each of their consciousness transferred into a baby clone of each of them. Free from the hunger that made them evil, they were then all adopted by Spider-Man. Ah, cutest little baby villains ever. We'll see if they grow up to be evil, but I doubt it. They're pretty cute. Number 6. Regent. Regent was also known as Augustus Roman. What a name, by the way, Augustus Roman. He was the man behind a prison known as the Cellar on Rikers Island, which housed some of the most dangerous criminals. Rikers Island itself is known for prisons of this sort. The difference with this one was that Roman was actually using the prison as a means of creating his own superpowered suit to go after the Avengers with. He was mistreating the prisoners, using them for their powers, which he was then able to utilize within his own suit. Roman was obsessed with controlling and containing the superpowered abilities of all superhumans, which he also aimed to do with the Avengers. This had a lot to do with his own backstory. He's got some feelings about superhumans, let me just say. During his fight with the team, we got to see him take on not just Spider-Man, but we also saw MJ join the fight as well, donning the Iron Spider suit. I love when writers let MJ get involved in some of the action. Regent proved to be a challenging foe for the Avenger team, and for Spider-Man, and for MJ, for everyone that was involved. Number 5. Red Goblin. During a fight with Spider-Man in the Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, issue 798, it was revealed that Norman Osborn was bonded with the Carnage symbiote. Dun dun dun. Very scary stuff, guys, very scary stuff here. Spider-Man, of course, had an appropriate response to this news, and I've got a page from that comic in the links below there for you guys. Red Goblin then proceeded to threaten Spider-Man's loved ones, promising he would kill them, and not even as Green Goblin would with like a fall, but only as the Red Goblin could, unless Peter Parker gave up being Spider-Man. Also, the Red Goblin killing your family and loved ones is like definitely not a good idea. Terrified Parker agreed to the Red Goblin's terms, but of course he double-crossed him, promising at the end of the comic to fight on, not as Spider-Man, but as Peter Parker. Gasp. Red Goblin would then chase after his own family, his son Harry, his daughter-in-law Liz, and his 2 grandchildren Normie and Stanley. He was accosted during the ongoings of this family affair by Human Torch, Clash, Silk, and Peter Parker, and later Anti-Venom. But due to the combined powers of the Goblin formula and the Carnage symbiote, he was pretty much able to easily defeat those guys, because that's just how terrifying and powerful Red Goblin is. Not to mention, he's also one of the most ruthless and diabolical villains that Parker has pretty much ever come up against. So yeah, don't mess with Red Goblin. He will mess you up. You don't even know. Number 4. Null. Null has been at the center of one of the biggest, most exciting Venom story arcs yet, Donny Cates' Absolute Carnage. This storyline features, in fact, a spectacularly terrifying cast of great big bads, including a resurrected Cletus Cassidy in the Grendel symbiote, evoking an even more psychotic version of the recently deceased Carnage symbiote, Shriek, the Church of the New Darkness, and Doppelganger, an evil version of Spider-Man, basically. Null seeks to gain control over Cletus and be reborn. As such, Dark Carnage, as we now know him, prompted by Null, attempts to reclaim all of the codexes of those who were once bonded with symbiotes. Codexes are basically like a leftover remnant or an imprint of those symbiotes within one's body. Stored within the spine, by the way. Yeah, so you gotta take it out of the spine. Meaning that we see Dark Carnage as well as a whole bunch of other similarly influenced symbiotes go on a rampage, devouring spines of beloved heroes, villains, and characters both alive and dead, left, right, and center, who were once bonded with any symbiote pretty much ever. Yo, if you guys haven't read Absolute Carnage, you need to read at least some of it. Just at least like a tiny.
Number 3. Uranus. Okay, technically this guy actually appeared in What If number 24 in September of 1980, but 1. He looks completely different, 2. He wasn't doing anything until now, and 3. He's cool, so I don't really care. Uranus the Undying is Thanos' grand uncle, and one of the deadliest beings in the Marvel Universe. Uranus, like every Eternal, was created by the Celestials 1 million years ago, but he believed the Eternals best fulfilled their purpose if they exterminated both the deviants and the humans, all life outside the universe, and imprisoned the Celestials. Luckily, his brothers Kronos and Oceanus disagreed, plunging the Eternals into civil war. Now, he ultimately lost that war and was captured by his brothers and became the first Eternal to be imprisoned within the Exclusion, where he stayed for over 500,000 years because of the failsafe he imposed upon the machine. That failsafe being that if he dies, his greatest celestial designed weapons will be unleashed. Recently, mutants have been revealed to be related to deviants, making the X-Men enemies to the Eternals, and the Eternal Druid called on Uranus for help in Axe Judgment Day #1. And to show how powerful he is, in a matter of 20 minutes, Uranus eradicated Cable, Magneto, and David Haller, otherwise known as Legion, along with a bunch of other very powerful mutants. He's scary.
Number 2. Annihilation. Annihilation was at first a mysterious villain who appeared in the X-Books. Eventually, however, we learned that Annihilation was actually a demonic and possessive force which had taken over Genesis, who was forced to take up the golden helm of Annihilation after defeating the villain. It was basically a losing battle either way, as if Genesis lost, she would have died, but in winning, she was forced to take up the helm and then lead the demonic forces of Amenth, which had so long plagued Araco and its people. So it's like a if you win, you lose, and if you lose, you lose. Genesis turned out as well to be the long-lost wife of Apocalypse. Apocalypse had left his wife, children, and people eons ago in an attempt to help saving Araco from the Amenthi forces that threatened to one day overtake it. In the end, Apocalypse, with the assistance of Saturnine, helped to free Genesis from the hold of Annihilation, and the helm was turned into a staff that was less influential on its host and more easily used as a tool instead of, possessing the will of whomever possessed it. Annihilation had their first appearance in X-Men issue number 12 from 2020.
Number 1. Monolith. This likely villain is so new it was hard to even find information about her. First appearing in July of 2022, which is last month unless you're in the future, in Hulk number 9, Monolith is the very strong, big pink queen of Hulk Planet. Hulk Planet is set to be the title of the new Hulk story arc taking place after Hulk's whole Titan Hulk thing and the fight with Thor that just took place. The planet itself is situated right next to a gamma-emitting star, so if you haven't guessed yet, Hulk Planet is indeed a planet covered in Hulks. Banner, piloting the Starship Hulk, finds the Hulk planet while on a mission for isolation. Instead, he meets Monolith, who offers him a place among the other Gamma beings where Hulk can exist in peace. But of course, there seems to be more to Monolith than meets the eye, and we kind of just have to wait until we can find out more information. It is likely safe to assume that as the leader of a planet of Gamma mutates, Monolith is very strong and very powerful. Will Hulk find peace? That's not usually how it goes, but only time will tell.